All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being here with me today. I'm your host, Nolan. If you guys have been paying attention to this show, keeping up with the episodes here, or just paying attention to geopolitics at all over the past couple of years, then you would know that support for Israel across the West, but specifically in the United States among the population, has drastically declined as a result of Israel's actions in Gaza over the past couple of years of committing atrocities on one of the largest scales we've ever seen on video. And as a result of this decline in popularity and this decline of support, specifically the fact that it's on the younger generations, Israel's acknowledging now that support in the future, specifically for the next generation, is now no longer guaranteed, as it has been for the past roughly 80 years in America and in the West. And knowing that, they decide now is their last chance. While there is an Israel-friendly administration in the White House, they believe now is the last chance to get friendly terms on long-term aid from the United States. And they have decided to enter negotiations to renegotiate the Memorandum of Understanding, the running MOU that we have with Israel and have had for roughly 30 years. And we'll cut to the chase right here. It results in an increase in spending from the United States that will go to Israel. So we'll get into all the details of this America Last negotiations that are currently ongoing between America and Israel. And we'll also later on in the episode touch on Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie being attacked by Donald Trump on Friday. And we'll talk about all the tweets back and forth and the response, the fallout in the media. And we'll talk about all this today and more on the Quest for Clarity podcast.
Americanism, not globalism.
I am not a slave. I am a free citizen.
There should be no Federal Reserve System.
Only America first.
End all of these wars.
America is trying to play empire. We want everything released, and you're actively covering it up. It's not America first to be pushing our influence in areas where it shouldn't be. We're run by people that don't understand what they're doing and don't understand the ramifications of the policies they're enacting. That's an incredibly dangerous situation. All right, everybody, before we begin, if you wouldn't mind going right down below this video and hitting like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Also, if you wouldn't mind going to my Instagram, X, and Spotify accounts and giving all those a follow, I'd really appreciate that as well. But let's get into the news of the day. And this has been news for a couple days now. We just haven't gotten to cover it because of the weekend. But over the past few weeks, it's been released by Axios that Israel has come to the United States looking to renegotiate the terms of our running MOU, our Memorandum of Understanding that we have with Israel, which is essentially our aid package deal, our annual aid to Israel. Now, it's important to establish what that already is, what our current MOU with Israel is, before we get into the potential changes that will be made in this potential new MOU that we will have with Israel. And just to set the stage here, the reason that they are looking to renegotiate this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, as it is right now, as it has been for almost 30 years at this point, roughly 27 years at this point, we have had a 10-year at a time MOU with Israel which we give them $3.8 roughly billion a year. Largely, it's more than that because of potential other activities throughout the course of the year. But we give them $3.8 billion a year over the course of 10 years, and at the end of that 10 years, they renew the MOU. That has been for about 27 years now, and coming up in 2028 is the renewal period for the MOU for this 10-year term. And instead of waiting till 2028 to negotiate and renew the current MOU that we have with Israel, Israel is seeing the writing on the wall. They are acknowledging, as is being expressed in poll after poll after poll of the American population, that support for Israel is at all-time lows and is not looking like it's going to be coming back up anytime soon. And because of this, Israel is kind of panicking at this point because essentially their entire defense is propped up by the United States of America. And if there's any chance that future generations and potentially even a next administration might be less inclined to give them all the aid that they want, as every administration in U.S. history has been willing to do, then that's actually an existential threat for Israel's survival because of how heavily they rely on U.S. aid to prop up their entire defense, the Iron Dome, even large parts of the rest of their society, whether it be healthcare or other things. And they don't believe that even if they can get it renewed in 2028, they don't believe that come 2038, when that 10-year MOU is up for renewal, they don't believe that in 2038 there will be the public support to get that renewal. And then in 13 years, then Israel is at a very real threat, a very real risk of, who knows, being very vulnerable. And that is the reason that we have this new proposal of that Israel is coming to the United States over the past couple weeks and negotiating for a new deal. Let's read what it says here on antiwar.com. This is antiwar.com's article by Dave DeCamp on this from a couple days ago. It says, quote, Israel is seeking a 20-year military aid deal with the U.S. and is looking to increase the annual amount of military assistance it receives from Washington, Axios reported on Thursday. A 20-year deal would double the usual terms for U.S.-Israel military aid agreements. The current Memorandum of Understanding, negotiated under the Obama administration, was the third 10-year military aid deal between the two countries. The current MOU, which the U.S. provides Israel with $3.8 billion in military aid each year, expires in 2028. The Axios report said that Israeli officials hope to have a replacement deal in place over the next year. Since October 7th, 2023, the U.S. has provided significantly more military aid to Israel to support the genocidal campaign in Gaza and other Israeli military operations in the region. According to Brown University's Cost of War project, the 2 years following the October 7th attacks, the U.S. government spent at least $21.7 billion on military aid to Israel and another $9.65 billion to $12.07 billion on wars in Yemen, Iran, and other military operations in the region in support of Israel. So, Israel now, seeing the writing on the wall, out of fear that in the future, in the next couple decades, or potentially the next couple years, out of fear that the U.S. population will no longer publicly support more aid to Israel, they are trying to get in while they can, while there is still a pro-Israel administration in office here in America, and they're trying to renegotiate terms on the MOU and make them very friendly towards Israel to help them get by for at least the next 20 years, while support for Israel may drastically decrease in America. And now, it doesn't go into specifics, but it does say here in the report that there will be reportedly negotiated America First provisions to this new MOU, and most likely in an attempt to sell it to the public who is not looking for another aid package to Israel right now. The large swaths of the population, again, specifically the younger population, that are very energetic about this topic, are not happy to see more aid go to Israel, especially after what they've witnessed over the past 2 years. And who knows what it'll be. We don't have direct reporting on what the ideas that they're being floated are, but it'll likely mean America First provisions will likely mean that they'll be required to spend some percentage of the aid we give them on American industry, specifically the military-industrial complex, which isn't very America First if you ask me, because that's not helping the American people at all. Boosting the military-industrial complex doesn't help the American people at all. That's how they like to dress it up when they say our military aid across the world is required to be spent on American industry. All that means is that Raytheon and Boeing and Lockheed Martin are all getting a check. So that's not really helping you at all when they say that. So if that's what it ends up being, just know that's not America First, that's military-industrial complex first. But it is important to go over what the current arrangement is with Israel, because it's very different than any other country in the world. If anyone out there has read The Israel Lobby by John Mearsheimer, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. The current arrangement is this. Every 10 years, we have a Memorandum of Understanding come up for renewal with Israel that entails $3.8 billion a year to Israel, and it largely results in roughly $4.5 billion a year going to Israel if you take into account all the military action that we take on behalf or in support of Israel in their actions across the region. And they are the only country in the world where they are not required to tell us where they spend the money. They spend the money without telling us where it goes. They're the only country in the world that doesn't have the same requirements as everyone else on the amount that needs to be spent on U.S. industry. And they actually have another very different arrangement than the rest of the world in that they don't receive it in payments over the course of the year. That 3.8 isn't spread out over the course of the year. They receive the 3.8 billion within the first 30 days of the year as a lump sum. They get it all at once, and that is very specifically so that they can take a large portion of that money and put it towards buying U.S. Treasury bills so that they can, over the course of the year, collect interest on the Treasury bills. So they're literally making money off of the U.S. aid that we give them in the year, and they're making money off the interest on the treasury bills. So it's a sweetheart deal, and they're the only country in the world that gets this type of a deal where they get it all up front like this. And they use roughly a quarter of the $3.8 billion we give them to subsidize, since they don't invest in our defense industry, they subsidize their own defense industry, and then they still call on the United States, and our people in the United States go with it. They still call on us to ship weapons over there and money over there every time they're into a conflict, even though that they spend a quarter of the aid we give them on bulking up their own defense industry. So it's completely dysfunctional, this current arrangement, and they're the only country in the world that has this arrangement like this sweetheart deal. And this new deal, if we go into the details again, is they're going to up the pay, or up the amount of money that the U.S. is going to give them over the course of this 20 years to $4 billion a year. So $200 million more than we already give them a year, officially on the record, because we give them much more than that. But they're going to up it to $4 billion a year over 20 years. So this is an $80 billion deal officially on the record, on the books. And this locks us in because, again, the whole reason for this, and everybody knows this to some level, American support for Israel is not only not guaranteed in 20 years, it's almost like, I would go as far as to say it's almost certainly not going to be at least at the levels it is today. And that is, again, a critical detail to remember, because that's really the major factor here and why we're even negotiating this deal in the first place. Because Israel sees Israel is smart. They know what's happening right now. They know that the fact that the young generation that is eventually, in the next 20-ish years, going to be the leading generation in leadership roles across the United States and across our federal government, they know that this generation disproportionately is not for what they are doing right now in Gaza, is not for bombing Iran, for example. It's not for supporting them and giving our money away to them for nothing in return, which is what we are doing right now. And once this young generation gets into power, it's very likely that Israel will no longer be riding so easy on U.S. aid. And they know this, so they're trying to lock us in. And again, we have to emphasize, just so everyone understands the significance of it, how much Israel does rely on the United States currently and has relied on us historically for their very existence in many ways. We in the United Nations, they rely on us diplomatically. We are the only country that will just, whenever they request it, we veto every resolution in the United Nations that denounces their actions in Gaza, their actions in the West Bank, the settler violence. We veto all these resolutions that denounce them. So we diplomatically take the heat on behalf of Israel's actions in their own neighborhood. We take the heat for it. We're the major power that it acts. We sign on to everything they do. They rely on us for the entirety, essentially, of their Iron Dome. We literally come to the rescue. The Iron Dome technology, the basically missile defense technology around the entire country of Israel that shoots down missiles that are incoming from the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon or Iran, as we saw over the summer. It's basically reliant on these neighboring countries to assist. And that is all done. We get them all to assist with the bully pulpit of American power in the region. That's how we do it. And so they rely on us entirely for their defense. Again, as I said before, we prop up largely their entire defense system. We facilitate everything they do in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, we on behalf of Israel, we have bombed just this year. We have bombed the Houthis in Yemen. We bombed Iran earlier this year. We've allowed Israel and made excuses for Israel bombing inside of Syria earlier this year. We watched as they bombed Qatar, a U.S. ally, without our approval, and nothing changed. We got one apology by Netanyahu, and then nothing changed. There was never even a threat of aid being revoked. So this is the current setup here, and it's very lopsided. It only goes one way. And whenever you ask, what do we actually get in return for this relationship, you're met with very vague responses. You get told that we get intelligence, world-class Mossad intelligence from them. Okay, well, what is that intelligence? Is that the same intelligence that lied us into Iraq, told us that there were WMDs in Iraq because Israel wanted us to invade Iraq, because the road to Damascus leads through Baghdad? This is the game. We are fed intelligence from Mossad that we're told is world-class intelligence, and this is what we get in return for the foreign aid. We get the access to the most world-class intelligence in the world. But that intelligence is repeatedly wrong, And in many ways, it is intentionally wrong to get us involved in conflicts and entanglements for Israel. I would highly recommend everyone go read A Pretext for War by James Bamford. I have it back here, where you can go read about the Office of Special Plans in the Defense Department during the Bush administration that was made under the watch of Dick Cheney. It was made by Paul Wolfowitz and Douglas Feith. And it was made specifically to funnel intelligence, largely Mossad intelligence, straight up through the CIA without any filtering at all, right to Bush's desk to help create the pretext for war, that there were WMDs in Iraq, that Saddam Hussein was in cahoots with Al-Qaeda, and that false intelligence that was pretty much knowingly false, it was intentionally false, it was intentionally sloppy, and shot right to Bush's desk, like, look at this, look at this, look at this. That was largely the result of Israel's friends in the United States in the Defense Department creating a specific office to funnel that intelligence directly to George Bush and convince him, under false pretexts, to invade Iraq. And this is the repeated cycle we see. We see that we have followed the direct path of the clean break memo. Back in 1996, Douglas Feith, David Wormser, and Richard Pearl wrote a letter commissioned by Benjamin Netanyahu laying out how the United States will help Israel in securing their realm by taking out leaders in Iraq, then Syria, then Iran. And when we follow this exact plan that's been laid out, and we have, in all of this, we're told that this intelligence that has led us to disastrous war after disastrous war in all these countries I just listed, that intelligence was is what we're told is what we're getting in return for the aid that we give Israel every year, the $3.8 billion in aid. And we're told we get access to this great intelligence that seemingly is always wrong. And it's funny that it's repeatedly wrong. If it's so great, it can't always be wrong, can it? Or can it be intentionally wrong? That might be the more likely outcome. Or that might be the more likely answer, I should say. So in return for all the aid that we give Israel, we get intelligence we're told that is world class that always is wrong, and it is always wrong to the benefit of Israel. So that's important to note. Also, we're always catching spies in America. We had Jonathan Pollard back in the 80s that was literally a spy for Israel that was then shipped back to Israel like a decade later and got a hero's welcome from Benjamin Netanyahu after Netanyahu had lobbied for years to get this Israeli spy from within the United States released to Israel. He lobbied for years to get him released. Just this year, we caught the Israeli diplomat in Las Vegas trying to meet up with a minor in Las Vegas over some dating app or something. He was caught in an FBI sting and then let to return to Israel. So this is the arrangement we have here. And I didn't even talk about the fact that we had back in the 90s, Israel literally gave our Patriot missile technology away to China back in the 90s. So all of this is just to say that this arrangement is very one-sided, and everyone who says we get intelligence in return or Israel does our dirty work for us, all of this is ridiculous because they're just doing their dirty work in the name of America, and the intelligence we get from them is very often wrong, and it's wrong in their benefit. So this is the current situation, and they realize what's going on here. They see that American support for Israel is dwindling, and they're just trying to lock in 20 more years of support, and hopefully they can get by. So that's the game with this. So that's what's happening right now. It's been happening over the last couple weeks, these negotiations that are apparently now ongoing, and they look to have it finalized within a year, it says. So that we'll see what happens with that. Of course, we'll keep you guys updated if that becomes finalized or if anything new occurs in the negotiations with that. But we'll move on now to our second topic of the day, and this was what occurred back Friday afternoon. Donald Trump attacked Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. I'm going to read you here what he said on Truth Social about both of them. He said about Thomas Massie, quote, "Did Thomas Massie, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr. because of the fact that he always votes against the Republican Party, get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him at least 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas, and question mark. His wife will soon find out that she's stuck with a loser." So, what are we going to expect? I mean, obviously not a substantive take about Thomas Massie, which we all know the reason he's attacking Thomas Massie. It's a couple of reasons. One is the fact that he's the only Republican that voted against I believe the only Republican in the House, one of only a few, if he's not the only, who voted against the Big Beautiful Bill, which drastically increases spending. The deficit's still $2 trillion with that spending bill. So that's for one. Two, he's also the prominent Republican, the leading Republican pushing for the release of the Epstein files and this discharge petition that just passed, or is looking like it's going to pass in the House tomorrow. And for 3, he's the only Republican who isn't blindly shilling for Israel in the House. So all of this combined is really the reason that Donald Trump is going after him, because he's not signing on to the worst aspects of whatever Trump is trying to push. So that's what happened there. He then just minutes later, attacked Marjorie Taylor Greene, and this is a long one, so buckle up. He says, quote, "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports, or transgender for everybody, including DEI, stopping Biden record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopped 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world as opposed to being the laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars record-setting invested in the United States, and having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see wacky Marjorie doing is complain. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12% and didn't have a chance, unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. She has told many people that she's upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore, but the 219 congressmen and women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, and almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I don't have time to take ranting lunatics' phone calls every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they are too fed up with her and her antics, and if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with their low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to the matter. Make America great again. Anyways, that was what he had to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene. He then followed that up with some shorter tweets, basically calling Marjorie Traitor Greene. He calls her Marjorie Taylor Brown because grass turns brown from green when it rots. So he has the nicknames lined up on her. And let's just be real. The real reason that he's attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been basically the spokeswoman of MAGA for the last couple of years, she's been really one of the major fixtures in MAGA. She's been one of the main characters, essentially, of this whole movement. And Thomas Massie, who is just a libertarian who disagrees with him on policy, the main reason he's going at these guys is because of the Epstein files. That's the real reason. And it makes you wonder, and by the way, I just picked up, this is Virginia Giuffre's new book, and she has always said on the record that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. We have testimony from other people, and apparently, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the victims that she's met with say Trump did nothing wrong, and he was actually always willing to help with the investigation. So it makes you wonder, why are they so concerned with these files coming out? Now, we did last night have Donald Trump make a complete 180 on the Epstein files and say that he's always been in support of releasing them and that all the Republicans in the House should release them, which to say he's always been in support was not true, because just the other day we had Lauren Boebert getting summoned to the White House Situation Room by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to basically lobby her into not supporting the discharge petition. So that's just false, that he was always in support. We had reports that he was calling up congressmen and telling them not to, and basically threatening them with revoked endorsements if they did. So now we have a complete 180, largely because he sees the base is upset with this. So that's something to note, the fact that he is very receptive to the fact that the base was upset about this. And again, if we're being real, that's the reason he's going after Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, because they were making this a very major deal. And why shouldn't they? We had, during the Trump campaign, not only did Trump himself say that he was going to release the Epstein files, we had J.D. Vance go on Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan to talk about it. We had Don Jr. at Turning Point make whole speeches about it. We had Kash Patel on Glenn Beck and other podcasts talking about it. We had Pam Bondi out there every day at the beginning of this term saying how she was going to get to the bottom of it. We had the binder stunt. So we've very much been under the impression, and they played into this during the campaign a lot, that we were going to get to the bottom of the Epstein situation, and we were going to expose all the corrupt elites that have been abusing young girls in this country with Jeffrey Epstein, who had received or had been involved in this trafficking ring with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and then they act all offended when everyone's confused as to why we receive a letter that says there was no one at all who was involved in this trafficking ring besides Epstein and Maxwell. So they can look at us like we have three heads all they want, but they're the ones making the outlandish claim here. They're claiming that 1,000 girls were abused by only 2 people. So the onus is on them to prove that that's the case, especially since we have overwhelming evidence that's publicly available that would basically prove that's not the case. And we have testimony from all these witnesses, these like 1,000 witnesses, or 1,000 victims roughly, that make it very clear that that is not the case, that there were very much other powerful elites involved in abusing these girls. And we have evidence, as I talked about in my last episode, that he was working at different phases of his life on behalf of Israeli intelligence. So whether it's because the Trump administration is looking to protect their donors, who are in some cases very Israel-friendly donors, whether it's because they're looking to protect other interests, I don't know what it is, and there's not really an explanation that I can clearly come up with, because, again, these people testified over and over under oath that he did nothing wrong. So it's very bizarre, but now it looks like they're in full support of releasing them. So either they scrubbed what they had to scrub, or there's actually nothing there. So who knows? All we do know, though, is that someone needs to get to the bottom of this, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Ro Khanna, they very much care about getting to the bottom of this, and it looks like we actually might in the coming days. So we'll be up to date on that. Be sure to follow here on the show for any updates on that. But I think that's where we'll leave it off for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Please be sure to go to my Instagram, X, and Spotify accounts and follow all those, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a good day.
Americanism, not globalism.
I am not a slave. I am a free citizen.
There should be no Federal Reserve system.
Only America first.